When my daughter-in-law Anna opened the door that autumn afternoon, the light was low and golden, spilling across the porch like warm honey. The air smelled of wood smoke and fallen leaves. Her face was pale, drawn tight, as though she had rehearsed this moment in the mirror 100 times. Behind her, in the dim hallway, my son Victor stood with his arms folded across his chest, eyes fixed firmly on the wooden floorboards. He would not look up. Not once. Anna spoke first. Her voice was steady, almost gentle, but there was an edge beneath it, like a blade wrapped in silk. "Elena, it's better if you don't come by unannounced anymore. We need space. Time to find our rhythm as a family." I stood on the welcome mat I had bought them the day they moved in, bright blue, with little embroidered flowers, clutching my old brown leather purse in one hand and a heavy paper grocery bag in the other. Inside the bag were 2 jars of chicken soup I had simmered all morning, a loaf of fresh rye bread, and a stack of tiny clothes I had knitted over sleepless nights, soft blue sweaters, booties with tiny pom-poms, a blanket the color of fresh cream. From somewhere deep in the house came the thin, reedy cry of my grandson Misha. I knew that cry instantly, even though I had only held him once, briefly, awkwardly, the week he came home from the hospital. The sound pierced me straight through the heart, sharp and clean, like a needle sliding between ribs. My arms ached with the memory of his weight, barely there, warm, smelling of milk and new skin. I wanted to push past her, to run inside and scoop him up, to whisper that Babushka was here. Instead, I only managed a small, stiff nod. "I understand," I whispered, though I did not understand at all. My voice sounded small and far away, like someone else speaking from the bottom of a well. I turned, walked slowly down the 3 porch steps, and got into my old gray car. I did not look in the rearview mirror as I drove away. I could not bear to see the door close behind me. That was the day the silence truly began. My name is Elena. Most people who knew me when I was young called me Lena, but time and grief have a way of lengthening names. I am 72 years old now. On that afternoon, I was 65. I raised Victor alone after his father, my Stefan, died in a factory accident when our boy was only 7. One ordinary Tuesday, Stefan kissed me goodbye in the kitchen, teasing me about burning the toast. By evening, 2 policemen stood on our doorstep, hats in their hands. A machine malfunction. Instant. No suffering, they said. As if that was supposed to comfort me. The world narrowed after that. Colors faded. Food lost taste. I moved through days like a ghost, doing what needed to be done because there was no one else. I took extra cleaning jobs in the evenings, wealthy people's houses with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. I came home with hands red and raw from bleach, back aching from bending over bathtubs, but I never complained. Every morning I braided Victor's dark hair, packed his lunch with a little note tucked inside, "Be brave today, my lion." I never missed a school play, a football match, a parent-teacher night. Even when I had the flu, even when my feet bled in my shoes, I showed up. I told myself that if I gave him everything, every ounce of love, every scrap of strength, he would always have enough to carry with him. That he would always come home. Victor grew tall and quiet, like his father. He had Stefan's dark eyes and gentle hands. He studied hard, won a scholarship to university 2 hours away. The day he left, I helped him pack his bags in silence. When he hugged me goodbye on the train platform, I held on a second too long. He patted my back awkwardly, the way young men do when they are trying not to cry. I stood on the platform long after the train disappeared, waving at smoke. He called every Sunday at first. Long calls, full of stories, new friends, difficult professors, the cafeteria food he hated. Then, one Sunday, he mentioned a girl named Anna. His voice changed when he said her name. Softer. Brighter. "She's different, Mama. Strong. She knows exactly who she is." I wanted to love her before I even met her. When they brought her home that first Christmas, I prepared for days. I scrubbed the house until it gleamed. I cooked everything I knew Victor loved. with sausage and cabbage, the honey cake Stefan used to request on his birthday. I wore my best dress, the deep blue one I saved for weddings and funerals. Anna was beautiful, tall, fair-haired, with cool green eyes that seemed to measure everything. She thanked me politely for the food, for the gifts, for the clean sheets in the guest room. But her smiles were careful, never quite reaching those eyes. She watched me the way you watch a stranger who might knock over something precious. I tried too hard. I see that now. I offered advice without being asked. I rearranged the baby gifts they had already organized. I asked about wedding plans before they had even discussed them. I mistook her quiet reserve for disapproval and doubled my efforts to win her over. Love, for me, had always meant doing, showing up, helping, fixing. But Anna needed space to breathe, and I kept stepping into it. Victor, my gentle boy who hated raised voices, said nothing. He never did. When they announced the pregnancy over the phone, I cried out loud, tears of pure, blinding joy. I began knitting immediately. Tiny things at first, booties, hats, then larger, sweaters, blankets. I sent packages every few weeks. The thank you notes were brief, polite. Sometimes there were none. When Misha was born, I learned from a photo Victor posted online before he called me. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at that picture for hours, those tiny, perfect fingers curled around Victor's thumb, the dark fuzz of hair, the serious little face. I whispered, "Hello, my darling," to a screen that could not whisper back. I drove to see them a week later, arms full of soup, bread, gifts. Anna opened the door looking exhausted, hair unwashed, eyes shadowed. Misha was sleeping. When I asked to hold him, she hesitated for a fraction of a second, then placed him carefully in my arms. He weighed almost nothing. His warmth seeped through the blanket into my chest. I rocked him gently, tears sliding down my cheeks onto his tiny hat. I stayed only 40 minutes. I did not want to be too much. That was the only time I held him as a baby. After that, the distance grew slowly, like frost spreading across a window. At first the excuses were small. He's colicky this week. We're all coming down with something. Maybe next month when things settle. I stopped asking so often. I did not want to hear the pauses on the phone, the careful politeness in Anna's voice. I sent cards anyway. Small gifts. A wooden toy at Christmas. Books for his first birthday. Some were acknowledged with a quick text. Many were not. I kept every photograph they posted in a folder on my computer. I printed the best ones and put them in frames around the house. Misha crawling. Misha walking. Misha blowing out 2 candles. I celebrated his birthdays alone, with a small cake and 1 candle for myself. Then came the afternoon I could no longer bear the ache. I told myself I would only drop off a tin of cookies and leave. But when Anna opened the door, her exhaustion had hardened into something firmer. The words came out calm, practiced. "We need space, Elena. Please respect that." Victor stood behind her, silent. I drove home through tears that blurred the road. The soup sat cold on the passenger seat. That night I sat at my kitchen table, the same scarred oak table where Victor had done his homework, where Stefan and I had planned our future, and stared at the empty chair across from me until the sky outside turned pale with dawn. The years that followed were not loud. There were no arguments, no dramatic scenes. Only quiet. Heavy, pressing quiet. I kept working long after I needed to. Cleaning offices early in the morning, then helping at the community center in the afternoons. I baked for fundraisers. I visited elderly neighbors who were even lonelier than I was. People said, "Elena, you are so strong. You handle everything so well." I smiled and thanked them. Strength, I learned, is often just loneliness that has learned to stand upright. Seasons turned. Springs with lilacs blooming untouched in my garden. Summers too hot for walking. Autumns when the leaves fell and no small hands helped rake them. Winters when the house creaked in the cold and the silence felt thick enough to touch. Birthdays were the hardest. I would wake early, heart fluttering with foolish hope. By evening, when the phone stayed dark, I would light a single candle on a small slice of cake and make a wish I no longer believed in. I never spoke anger aloud. I turned it inward. What had I done wrong? Was I too clingy? Too critical? Had my love become a burden? I replayed every visit in my mind like old films. The time I rearranged the baby bottles in the cupboard to make them easier to reach. The time I commented that Anna looked tired, meaning to offer help. The time I brought too many gifts and filled their small living room with bags. Small moments, perhaps, but maybe they added up. One winter I fell seriously ill. A chest infection that turned into pneumonia. I lay in bed for 2 weeks, fever burning, coughing until my ribs ached. No one knew. I managed with tea and pills from the pharmacy. I remember staring at the ceiling in the dark, thinking, if I died here, how many days would pass before someone found me? The thought frightened me more than death itself. When spring came and I recovered, I made a decision. I packed away the box of unsent gifts, clothes Misha had outgrown before he ever wore them, books, toys. I placed it high on a shelf in the closet and closed the door. I told myself I would stop waiting. Not stop loving, never that, but stop breaking my own heart with expectation. But hearts are stubborn things. I began small new routines. Long walks in the park where I used to push Victor on the swings. Coffee with an old friend from the factory days, Marta, who had also lost her husband young. We spoke of ordinary things, gardens, recipes, the price of bread. It helped. A little. One ordinary Tuesday in early spring, 7 years after that afternoon on the porch, my phone rang while I was watering the geraniums on the windowsill. The red flowers were just beginning to bud. I wiped my hands on my apron and looked at the screen. Victor. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Mama? His voice was deeper, rougher around the edges. Tired. Yes, I said, barely above a whisper. Yes, I'm here. Can we talk? In person? There's a cafe halfway, by the river. Saturday? I said yes before he finished the sentence. The drive there felt endless. I wore my good coat, the gray one with the soft collar. I arrived early and sat at a table by the window, watching the water flow past. When Victor walked in, my breath caught. He looked older, gray at his temples, lines around his eyes that had not been there before. Thinner, somehow. We ordered coffee. Spoke of safe things first, my health, his work, the weather. Then silence settled between us, thick but not hostile. Finally he spoke, voice low. I failed you, Mama. For years. I let fear choose for me. He told me things I had only guessed at. How hard the first years of marriage and parenting had been. Money always tight. Sleep fractured. Arguments sharp with exhaustion. How Anna had felt overwhelmed as a new mother, how my constant offers of help, well-meant, loving, had sometimes felt like judgment. Like she was not enough. I was caught in the middle, he said. I didn't know how to tell you to step back without hurting you. So I chose the easiest path. Distance. Silence. And that hurt you worst of all. That was cowardice, Mama. Plain and simple. I listened without interrupting. Tears slid down my cheeks, but I let them fall. When he finished, I reached for his hand across the table. I crowded you both, I said. I thought love meant being indispensable. I was so afraid that if I gave you space, you would drift away forever and never come back. I clung too tightly. I am sorry, Victor. Truly sorry. He turned his hand over and held mine, really held it, for the first time in years. We're the ones who are sorry. We built a wall instead of a bridge. And now Misha, he's 8 years old. He started asking questions. Why doesn't he have a babushka like his friends? Why isn't she in any of our new pictures? Why do we never visit? My heart stuttered in my chest. We would like to try again, Victor said quietly. Slowly. Carefully. If your heart is still open. I nodded, afraid that if I spoke, the tears would choke me. The first visit was cautious, like stepping onto thin ice in early spring. Anna opened the door herself. Her face was guarded, but not cold. She had lost the sharp edges of exhaustion. Motherhood had settled on her differently now. Misha stood half-hidden behind her legs, tall for 8, dark hair falling over serious eyes. Victor introduced us gently. This is your babushka Elena, Misha. The boy studied me openly, taking in my gray hair tied back, the lines on my face, the nervous smile I could not hide. I knelt slowly, knees creaking. Hello, my darling, I said softly. I have waited a very long time to meet you properly. He did not run into my arms. But after a long moment he tilted his head and asked, Do you like dinosaurs? I laughed, actually laughed, the sound surprising us both. Very much. Especially the ones with feathers. His eyes brightened. He led me inside to his room to show me his collection of plastic models lined up on the shelf. I listened as he explained which ones were carnivores, which were herbivores, which could fly. Anna watched from the doorway, arms loosely crossed, expression unreadable. I stayed 2 hours. When I left, Misha walked me to the door and waved seriously from the porch. It was small. But it was a beginning. Healing came in slow, quiet pieces. There were more phone calls, awkward at first, then warmer. Victor called on Sundays again, like old times. Sometimes Misha grabbed the phone to tell me about school, about a goal he scored, about a book he loved. Visits stretched longer. I learned to wait for invitations. I brought small things, a book, cookies I baked together with Marta, but never too many. One afternoon Anna and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen while Victor and Misha played football in the garden. She poured tea for both of us without asking. I was harsh, she said suddenly. Back then. I felt judged. Overwhelmed. Like nothing I did was right in your eyes. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. I was frightened, I admitted. Frightened of losing my only family. I thought if I helped enough, you would need me. Want me. I see now how that felt like pressure. I am sorry. She nodded slowly. I could have spoken up sooner. Instead of building walls. We did not embrace. But we sat in silence that was no longer hostile. And that was enough for that day. There were setbacks. A visit cancelled at the last minute because Misha was ill. A birthday where plans changed and I was not included. Each one hurt, but less sharply than before. We kept trying. Victor learned to speak up when things felt unbalanced. Anna learned to invite me for ordinary things, Sunday lunch, a walk in the park. I learned to accept without adding more. One late summer evening, as the light turned golden again, Misha ran to me at the door without hesitation and wrapped his arms around my waist. I held him carefully, breathing in the scent of grass and little boy and sunshine, afraid the moment would vanish if I held too tightly. Now, when I wake in the mornings and make tea, the house no longer feels too large. Some weekends the opposite chair at my kitchen table holds a small boy with dark hair, legs swinging as he tells wild stories over pancakes dripping with honey. Some evenings it holds my son, drinking tea slowly, talking about work, about life, about the past, carefully, gently, but honestly. The years of silence did not vanish. They left marks, quiet scars we all carry on our hearts. But scars mean the wound has closed. It has healed, however imperfectly. Love can be stretched thin by fear, by mistakes, by pride on every side. It can fray, weaken, nearly break. But sometimes, if everyone is willing to reach across the gap, to speak the hard truths, to listen without defense, it holds. It holds long enough to carry us forward. And a second chance, late and imperfect and hard one, can still be the most beautiful grace life offers. Sometimes, it is enough. More than enough.